Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
buddy.
Oh,
We
yeah.
can hear you.
All right. All right.
Live
Let's
from
bring it. I got double overtime here. Let's not waste it.
No, Sean was saying before we went on, he was like, for as much as we talk about how great Gene is, we don't even talk about how amazing his hair is.
Yeah, you know what? Well, thank you for that. First of all, you guys, I say this to people, they'll come up to me and say, why do those guys like you so much? I say, I don't know, but I really appreciate it because you guys have raised my street cred and even the brand because I mean, you end up being sort of considered an Oilers guy or a Sportsnet guy, but you guys have sort of widen that for me. So I do appreciate that. And it's nice staying in touch with you guys. And yes, it was a bathroom in Buffalo last time we chatted on trade deadline day. Now it's a little different.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
We got
I'm at
pool
the
Gene.
I'm at the pool. Yeah, I'm at the
Nice.
pool. I don't know if you're lucky or unlucky. I got my shirt on as opposed to normally I don't. But
I
yeah,
hope
it
you're
was a
not
great
doing that
night
for
last
us.
night.
I hope
It
you're not
was
doing
a
that
great.
for us because Gene popping his top off would be incredible for us. in our
pectoral
ratings.
reveal when.
You know what? It's lunchtime out east. I'm not sure people are ready for that. Between their clam chowder and then some pectoral action, I don't know if that goes well.
Ooh, chat
Yeah.
says Gene Principe. That's pretty good.
Ooh,
Oh,
it's
I
pretty
like
good.
that. Yeah.
Sorry,
Well, let's
Gene.
dive right into last night.
Yeah, dive right
Nice.
in. Well, before we do, what's it like
Yeah.
being like a national star now? You said that you were used to being like an Edmonton guy,
Yeah.
and now we've kind of expanded your horizons. What's it like?
Well, it's great. You know what? I think sometimes that you know when you're around Edmonton and Rogers Place and you know in that sort of familiar territory, uh, you know you're sort of used to getting not used to getting recognized, but you understand it. But then when you start getting to you know other places on the road, for example, last night a couple people noted our sort of working relationship that we have and saw what we did in Vegas during Super Bowl week, and the Oilers had started their post All-Star break schedule there. So I love it. And you know what? You guys are young and hip, and I don't know if I'm either. So I think that also adds to it. It's one thing for you know for people my age to maybe consider me to be a reasonable guy, but you guys are a good 20 plus years younger than me or around that. So yeah, it's helping. So I appreciate it.
Well,
You're way cooler than we'll ever be at any age. So don't even. I did want to ask
Well,
you. You mentioned the atmosphere or the being seen in Dallas. What was the atmosphere for Game 1? Because it seemed like a pretty electric building last night.
yeah, you know what? I'll start with this, and this is a comment, not a criticism, just an observation. When you go from an all Canadian battle between two teams so geographically close, like Edmonton and Vancouver, the media bases and the fan bases get after each other. So it was kind of nice that was neat. For 7 games, I'm not sure you'd want to have that all the time. So this is separate. The two teams have some history going back into the late 90s, early 2000s. It was wonderful. I mean, Dallas is a very loud, big, boisterous building. Lots of Stars fans. You know, you walk around, and of course, the Cowboys are number one all the time, every day of the week. But then you've got the Texas Rangers that certainly are there. The Mavs are with them, you know, in their own playoffs right now. And the Stars have found a really good, solid, growing fan base. Once you're out of the building, it may not be like you're in Edmonton or Vancouver, or, you know, or Boston, those kinds of cities, but huge support for the Stars. It was really great. In fact, myself and Elliot Friedman, you mentioned 32 podcasts, working with Elliot was a blast last night. When Edmonton scored, a couple of Stars fans in front of us gave us a fist pump. They knew we were doing Canadian TV. We knew you know who we were involved with, and they were still great about it. So that was kind of nice to know that it is important, but there's still some civility, I guess, between fans and broadcasters from different countries.
Well,
So what I'm getting is that Vancouver fans did not have civility.
Well, no,
First
they
time
were
for
actually
everything.
quite
Shocker.
nice. They were quite nice because you know when you go into a market like Vancouver, if people recognize you, they recognize you because you're an Oilers guy. And I would say this: Connor McDavid, who had himself quite an overtime, that was unbelievable. His overtime, just him. Forget about everything else. Just Connor McDavid. Lots of hockey fans will watch the Oilers because of McDavid and Draisaitl and company. You talked about Zach Hyman, who scored a heck of a goal. Talk about persistence and man/dad strength that he showed on that goal. So people do recognize you. They were quite nice. But if you start opinionating on X or Twitter as a broadcaster, then it can turn a different way, and that was from both sides. But it was a wonderful Canadian series, and now we move on with one Canadian team. You never know if all of Canada is cheering for Edmonton or not, but we know that at least part of Canada is. So it was a neat opening game. Hard to. I love what you guys said about the stars not sort of being what we expect. Because I agree with you with Jason Robertson. Jamie Benn was physical, but it wasn't sort of what you would expect from the number one team in the West. And I'm sure, we'll see that in game two, a lot of it as the Stars look to even up the series.
As someone who knows him, what do you think last night in that overtime meant to Connor McDavid?
Oh
Because
my gosh.
after the game, even by the time he got to, and obviously you were there, so you talked to him after the game, but by the time he got to the room, he seemed to have settled himself a little bit. But his immediate post-game interview on TNT, he was borderline kicking himself. He was still talking about how he chunked it in the first overtime, saying like, it's got to go in, it's got to go in. So what do you think it meant to him?
I think it meant the world to him. He said it post game. I don't know how much he would have slept last night between the double minor, which the penalty kill did a fantastic job killing that off, and then having that. I was going to say 97 times out of 100, if not more, he's going to score that goal, and so then to have another chance to score on a innocuous sort of deflection kind of out of nowhere. He had to be, and I know he had we actually flew in. His fiance was on the same flight as us. I know his dad was there, his brother was there, his brother's fiance, a bunch of buddies. Even just the little kid in him when you go meet your family after a game, whatever game it is, I'm sure he would have just been choked. But he came through, and I know he was relieved, and he was so supportive of his teammates because so often he's the guy carrying the team. But last night, he was able to make up for some things that you don't often see from Connor McDavid.
When we talked in Vegas, we mentioned and talked about how Connor McDavid has become a better quote and kind of a thoughtful guy in his interviews. But I've also noticed that he's become a lot more demonstrative and intense, both on and off the ice. And even the post-game interview, he wears his emotions on his sleeve and has this intensity about him. Did he suppress that earlier in his career, do you think? Or has it kind of stacked over time where he's now just kind of a little bit more comfortable being emotional, or just feels the intensity of the emotions a little bit more?
Yeah, I think that's a great pickup by you guys. I think, and this might apply to any. I got 3 kids that are not quite Connor's age, but close to his age, and I think it's just the growth of a person. You're not sure at 18 what's okay, what's not okay. You step into this league, this generational talent. They're talking about Gretzky and Lemieux and Crosby, and then me. I don't know if he knew what was okay, and I think he realized that who he is more than okay. He knows what to say, when to say it, how to say it. I loved his conversation with the referee. He's holding my stick. He's holding my stick. I thought that was great that he wasn't going to talk him out of anything, but I just thought he was just being him to say, hey, listen. And I thought it was kind of neat. The ref looked like he said, watch it, and you'll see the double minor. And he looked like he beat himself up by the time he got to post game with everything he went through. And there was a neat clip on Edmonton Oilers Instagram, and he jokingly says, or sarcastically, man, was that ever eventful? No kidding. The game seemed like a sidebar to the overtime, especially for Connor and maybe both teams, because Dallas has seen it from the other side. Oh my gosh, what a save by Onger. Oh my gosh, we had a power play for 4 minutes and didn't score. And then on a play that didn't seem that harmful ended up being the double overtime winner, and I'm sure a lot of people had a hard time going to sleep last night. But McDavid, at some point, I'm sure got his 8 hours in after scoring the game winner.
We've speculated a lot on his health. I think last night you saw that he's healthy enough,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
do you see at moments that maybe something might be there?
DJ, it's a great question because everybody thinks, there was that breakaway or looked like a breakaway for McDavid. He was at the end of his shift, and Essa Lindell caught him, and people start to say, "Oh, what's wrong? Is he what's you definitely think something's wrong when McDavid had gone, I think, 5 games without a goal, and Vancouver really went after him legally, for the most part, playoff legal, and they did a really good job against him, and especially 5-on-5. And so, for sure, when McDavid's not putting up the numbers and maybe showing you those flashes of brilliance, the automatic thing is, what's wrong with him? I think everybody is beat up at this point. They only had one day really off. They flew home from Vancouver, had Tuesday off, Wednesday practice, flew here, and then Thursday was game day. So I'm sure he's not 100%. Nobody is, but I haven't seen anything that would suggest to me that, as you said, he's healthy enough. If he were really in bad shape, now's not the time to play. You would take a game or two to try and recover, knowing that you'd be back for, let's say, game 3 or 4. But amazing story. He's had pressure on him since, oh my gosh, since he was eating cereal at 9 o'clock at night after his game, knowing that he was going to one day be this guy that is expected to win and lead his team to a Stanley Cup. And I would say this guy's 2022 got swept by Colorado. The Oilers felt like they were in a better place. Well, they are. They won one game already, which is more than they did versus Colorado. At least 3 more to go to get to the Cup final, but a huge step last night. And I don't want to get too far in the destiny thing, but at least for a moment, you feel like there's some destiny on the Oilers side because they kind of had everything happen to them last night where they shouldn't have won or couldn't have won, and they did. So who knows what that leads to moving through this series.
Well, since you just mentioned the destiny thing, we had the conversation briefly. Where does this rank? There's a lot of hockey left to be played in this series, but where did last night rank in terms of like Connor McDavid legacy games? Because it did feel like he willed the Oilers to win in that second overtime.
Well, Pete, normally, and you guys know it, normally when we talk about Connor McDavid and his legacy, he's gone end to end. He's had a 5-assist game. He's put up 6 points. He's embarrassed to set a defenseman, or he's made his behind the back through his legs pass to Leon Draisaitl for a power play goal. But last night was a legacy that everybody can kind of relate to and going, man, my day sucked and it didn't go well. And my teammates, my group at work, the people around me lifted me back up and made sure that they gave me another chance. And I took advantage of that chance. So yesterday was a day for every sort of average guy and gal to say, wow, the day wasn't quite over and I made the most of it. And I can go to sleep with a smile on my face because I did something to make everybody around me feel good. And I kind of felt like that was Connor's game, and that will be a game, Pete and DJ, that for sure, especially as we move forward, depending how far this goes, that everyone will look back at and say, remember that opening game against Dallas, and remember what happened in overtime, and remember how it finished. So that's what everyone will think about, again, depending on what happens this series and potentially if there's another series.
Where's the temperature and the confidence level on Stuart Skinner right now? Because heading into the series, that seemed to be the biggest perceived gap between the Stars and the Oilers was goaltending. But Stu looked great in game 1, and just wondering if maybe there's a little bit more confidence from the Oilers fans behind him. It looked great during the game, but after the game, he sounded very sleepy. He wanted to go right to bed. So
right to bed.
Where are the Oilers fans
Talk
on
about
Stu
relatable.
Right now?
Yeah. Well, I wish I had his problem. He usually says he loses about 10 pounds a game. And in Dallas, while it's cloudy out today, yesterday we got some sun in the afternoon, and it was the humidity. Literally, you could kind of cut it with a knife. It was just thick. As soon as you walked outside, you could feel it. And I think that Stuart is a young man, but a real mature man. Listen, Chris Knobloch made some big decisions last series. You take out your number 1 netminder, trailing a series 2-1. Then you bring them back in, trailing a series, two elimination games. Stuart does not disappoint. And last night, it's the cliche about your goalie has to be your best penalty killer. Listen, the penalty killers were fantastic, but in the end, they cannot block every single shot. And I just thought he gave them a sense of calm. He's very economical the way he plays. He's not flipping and flopping and flying. And I know it worked for the Dominator, but it doesn't work for everyone. And I just think that he oozed confidence. And I'm amazed at, as long as I've been around the sports business, how the word confidence comes up all the time. You can even bet that Connor McDavid probably his confidence was, there's different levels of confidence. There's days you think, I can take on the world today. There's nothing that can bring me down. Then there's days you're like, well, I think I got it. I feel like I should be able to accomplish that. And I'm sure that Connor and then Stuart, particularly in the last round, were kind of wondering, what have I got? But it's important to know that people around you believe in you. And that's what they gave Stuart by bringing him back in. And he has not let them down. And he will do whatever he can to make sure that he doesn't. So I think that it was a huge series turning moment in Vancouver. And I think game one, you never know, right? With the goalie, like, you let in a bad goal, and it doesn't matter that you made 90 out of the last 94 stops. It's the bad goal they talk about. He did not let in a bad goal at all. In fact, stopped the breakaway in his first shot of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think that kind of set the tone for him and the team, knowing that he was there and would be there from beginning to end.
Yeah, what stuns me, though, is just how far he's come so quickly. And maybe last night was a one-off performance. It was his best game since his shutout in Game 5. But, like, from a confidence or attitude standpoint, you know him better than we do. How does somebody go from unplayable a week ago to last night, like, really one of the best players on the ice and truly looking, we said this with goalies, like, locked in?
Yeah, I love the term locked in, because there was a great shot in the broadcast after a replay of Stuart, just, those eyes through his mask. And he just was like, the look that he gave was like, I'm locked in and I got this. Don't worry. Whatever amount of goals I can allow, I will allow, but I won't allow the one that causes us to lose this game. And I think mental health, Stuart's a big believer in lessons and experiences and taking the bad and turning it into good. I mean, he's 25 years old. He's already been married I think he's been married since he was about 21. He's got a little baby boy, Bo, who's one and then some. So he's life-wise, he's a little ahead of, well, certainly where I was. I didn't get married till I was 30. Didn't have my first kid till I was like 32, and I didn't have it. My wife had it.
He also looks like 40.
I know. Yeah,
he looks like a man.
Right.
I look like a child. If I stood next to Stuart Skinner, you'd be like, "Who's older here?" Like that guy by 20 years.
Yeah, no, I know. He just he looks it. He lives it. He is that part of just. We all know people who are kind of way older than their birth certificate suggests, and I don't know for sure, but I think after that loss where he got pulled, I think Stuart was crushed, as he should be or would be. Any of us would be in that scenario. And I think through his team, through his support, he's just kind of built himself back up, which seems amazing to do, as you said, DJ, in a week or less. But I think he's done that, and that he's a big reader on self-help books. He'll often read throughout the season. He's got it on the plane on just how to continue to either build yourself back up or keep yourself at a certain level. And I mean, I watched him last night, and I thought, how tense is that? It's a 4-minute power play in overtime. Everybody wants to bail out Connor McDavid because he's bailed out us all the time, as often as he can. So I don't think we're going to see what we saw in that last series. I'm not saying he's going to win, 7 straight games and they're going to win the Stanley Cup, but I don't think that Stuart Skinner should be a worry for Oiler fans and for the Oilers.
All right, well, somebody in the chat asks, is Gene on vacation? And I get the feeling when you're Gene motherfucking Principe, every day you're on vacation.
I haven't quite been called that before, but that is again street cred. Nobody calls me that.
It's a big nickname around here.
It is like I get I get Gino. That's about all I get. I don't get what you just called me, which makes me feel really cool.
Oh no,
My
you're that
wife
bitch,
always
man.
says, wife always says, "Do you have to come home with a tan like you just were on vacation?" And I'm like, well, we've been married. We just got past 27 years. So I said, she's used to it. Oh yeah, a long time, but big support. Everybody needs their support. I've got mine and my wife, kids, and extended family. But yeah, I do enjoy the outdoors, and the Italian in me, just a little olive oil drop, and I'm good to go.
You're the best. We love you. We'll let you get back to your bronzing, and thank you so much for coming on.
If the
with us.
Oilers
You're
win the
best.
cup, somebody suggested this in the chat. If the Oilers win the cup, we do a poolside podcast.
Yes, like instead of fireside chats,
Yeah,
poolside chats.
some frozen drinks.
Oh,
I'm in. I'll have shirt off. I'll have
Yes.
the sun. I'm in.
What a dream.
Oh, I've
the
never been
best.
more invested in the Oilers. Well, thank you, my friend. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, boys. Always enjoy it. So long.